Howdy, this is the Views from the Schott podcast. I'm your host, your one and only host, Tim Miller, and today it is Friday, December 20th, 2024, and I wish you a very, very, very happy Dot Your Eyes Day. Today's show is, of course, exclusively presented by College Basketball Analytics. You can sign up for a free account at cbbanalytics.com, or you can go there, sign up for a paid account, get an entire month free using the code SCHOTT, SCHOTT, SCHOTT. Buckeyes are going to take on the Kentucky Wildcats coming up tomorrow on Saturday. It's the number, 4 team, I think, in the AP poll, something like that. And the Buckeyes have stacked their non-conference schedule. It will culminate with this game being played at Madison Square Garden. Today, we're going to cover the game in its entirety. We'll talk about Kentucky's resume to this point, their offense, their defense. Then we've got some banger bets. We're not going to declare anything. No numbers are out yet, but we have a very, very, very strong leaning when the numbers come out. We'll likely make a move there. And then, of course, predictions and a pick for today's game. If you're new here, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on podcast, please subscribe wherever you are. And if you haven't heard, you have a chance to win one of 2 $25 Raising Cane gift cards. All you have to do is go on to Spotify, find Views from the Schott podcast. Yes, you should subscribe, but all you have to do is give a 5-star review, screenshot it, and DM it to me. My DMs are open at the Schott Pod on X, and you will be entered into the drawing for the chance to win one of 2 $25 Raising Cane's gift cards. Those will be given away probably right around the new year. So a little bit of time there. If you haven't entered yet, please do. Short story is this. The Nut House got mad at me, and is it called review bombing? I think that's what it's called. Just gave a bunch of 1-star reviews, even though they never listened to the show. Got to get that number back up, so I'd appreciate your help, because I give a crap about this, and this is real for me. Also, make sure you're following at the Schott Pod on X, because there may be a little a type of a giveaway or something like that coming up soon as well from a potential partner. All that said, we're thrilled to be talking Ohio State basketball. The Buckeyes pick up a nice win over Valpo earlier this week. They are in New York City as of time of recording and ready to go for the Buckeyes to take on the Kentucky Wildcats. This is going to be a big one for Ohio State. 5:30 tip-off on CBS. So think about your day. Me personally, I've got some Christmas festivities that I will be taking part in during this game. Unfortunately, is that bad for me to say? Potentially, but I'd like to be able to be locked in the game. I also love my family and enjoy seeing them. So what can you do? Plan out your day, all right? Get the Christmas shopping done. If you need to do that, get that done early in the day, because Ohio State plays Kentucky at 5:30. And then on the heels of that, you'll get maybe a half hour, 45 minutes of rest before the football team takes on Tennessee, of course, in the first round of the college football playoffs. So it's going to be a big day for Ohio State fans. And of course, the casuals, the major football fans who just kind of look at a box score here and there, maybe throw on a couple minutes of a game every couple of games of Ohio State basketball. If Ohio State loses, they will be around and they will come out and say, oh, typical Ohio State. This athletics department is not doing what it should. The basketball program, the football program, it's going down the drain. This is really, really bad. Well, Ohio State may lose to Kentucky, and that's just what do you expect? Kentucky's really good. Ohio State hasn't been that good. We can all relax. If the football team loses, the city of Columbus may burn to the ground. Like Grove City, Dublin, Upper Arlington definitely is going to be gone. Even if you're on the outskirts, like a Delaware, you could be in trouble. We'll see. That's not me making a threat. Relax. Others may. So it's going to be a big day for Ohio State fans tomorrow. Thanks for being here, by the way. It's a busy time of year. Hope you're excited for your Christmas and your New Year's Day and all those types of things. Thanks for being here, listening, or watching wherever you may be. Make sure you like on YouTube. Make sure you're following on all the socials, all that stuff. But thank you for being here. All right. Let's get into a complete breakdown of Ohio State taking on Kentucky. Kentucky, the number 12 ranked team in Ken Palm. They are number 10 in Bart Torvik and in the AP. I looked it up, so I didn't have to look it up during the show. Apparently, they're number 4, ranked the number 4 team in the nation. Do we care about the AP poll on this show? Absolutely, we do not. However, I took a look. I was curious. Ohio State, as of right now, is going to play the number 2, number 4, and number 12 teams in the AP poll in the non-conference, plus 2 other teams that have received votes in the last AP poll. Number 2, obviously, is Auburn. 4, Kentucky. 12 is what? A&M, I believe. Pitt and Texas both receiving votes as well. Quite the stacked schedule in year 1 for head coach Jake Diebler. Kentucky, a very, very good team, adding to the list of tough teams Ohio State will play in the non-conference. The Wildcats sitting at 10-1 right now. Their only loss on the season to Clemson. A bit of a shocker. Is Clemson good this season? Analytically, not really. They might make a run to the NCAA tournament, but the ACC not all that strong this year. We're not here to talk about the Clemson Tigers, though. However, they've also got a 5-point win over Duke that came early in the season. They beat Gonzaga by 1. They very easily could have lost that game. They were down by 18, I think, in the second half. They push it to overtime, and then old friend, if I can say, portal target, Andrew Carr, he missed 2 free throws with like 4 seconds left in overtime. Kentucky was only up by 1, and Gonzaga just couldn't get a shot off. They could have won that game very easily, but Kentucky gets the win. They also have a win over Louisville for what that's worth. So Kentucky has some nice wins on its resume this season, sitting at 10-1, one of the best teams in the nation, according to the AP. And according to me, I'd say they are also one of the best teams in the nation. So I'm kind of with the AP. I think Kentucky could potentially be a top 5, top 6 team in the nation right now and rest of season. So as much as I hate on the AP poll, they're pretty high on Kentucky analytically. Some are low on Kentucky. That's fine. I'm closer to the AP on this one. So we'll talk about the Kentucky offense. We'll talk about their defense, and then we'll get into some keys to the game, banger bets, and all those types of things. Let's start with Kentucky's offense, which is the number 1 scoring offense in the SEC. It's the number 1 scoring offense in the Power 5, and it's the number 1 scoring offense in the entire nation. No one scores more points per game in college basketball than Kentucky. What the heck is even that, man? Why is Ohio State playing all of these tough teams? Brand new roster, brand new head coach. Credit to you, Jake Diebler. Me personally, I'm kind of out on that. So averaging 91.3 points per game. They're 4th in the nation in assists per game, so they distribute and share well. They play well together. 49.5% from the field, 36.7% from the three-point line. Both of those numbers, field goal percentage especially, really good. And they're 8th in turnover rate as well in all of the NCAA. So they don't give up the ball. They keep the ball in their hands. They squeeze the orange, and they're 10th in offensive rating as well. 124.5 offensive rating is what Kentucky has as of now. So all the numbers you hear, very, very strong offensively. How do they do it? Well, spacing is one part. They've got guys on this team, like you think of Andrew Carr. Again, a guy Ohio State would have loved to have in the portal. He's a big man, but he can help you stretch the floor and space the floor a little bit more of a stretch floor than a traditional type of post player. Ball screens. They love their ball screens. They'll stack the floor to one side. They'll take a ball screen to the weak side of the floor, and that allows them to get a lot of open looks, keeps the defense from being able to overhelp, gives you an option to kick it out for a three-pointer as well. It's really simple. It's stuff I did on 2K back in the day. Did that all the time. A ball screen to the weak side of the floor, and then my player would like drop 45 points, and it was a good time as I sat there and drank my Gatorade and waited for basketball practice to start or something like that. That is what Kentucky does. Maybe I should be the head coach at Kentucky. Maybe. Outside of that, they've got like unconventional ways that they'll move the ball and distribute. So Ohio State will need to be aware of that. They will, if the ball is on the block, they'll kind of dish it over to the backside block for an open look there. You'll see wings who will like enter into the post and then they'll cut right to where they entered it. And then they'll get the pass as well and hit a shot. It's weird. It's odd. So Ohio State will have to keep its head on a swivel. That's Evan Mahaffey a lot of times, a guy who needs to step up and play well defensively. Your guards are going to have to step up and play well defensively as well in this one. So it's a really good offense. And not just that, this is a balanced attack for Kentucky. Actually, I don't want to talk about that yet. I want to talk about Jackson Robinson first. I think Jackson Robinson is the straw that stirs the drink for Kentucky. He's not leading the team in scoring. He's averaging 12.5 points per game for Kentucky this year, 1.9 assists per game. Those numbers not crazy good, but he takes care of the basketball. He's not going to turn the ball over, but he does so many things for this Kentucky offense. I think he's so important for them. He can catch and shoot. He's crafty at the rim. He can dump off to an open man. A really, really good passer. He made like a 90-foot quarterback pass against Gonzaga, I think in overtime, even found a man for an open layup, like the entire length of the floor. He made a pass. Wasn't a bounce pass. It was just, we're gonna throw it overhand. Caught, layup, easy, just like that. He's a really smart player, and he's been playing college basketball forever. He's a senior. He's been in college basketball for at least 4 years. So this is a guy who he's played really, really well for Kentucky this year. He's not your leading scorer. Has he led the team in scoring? He's led the team in scoring twice, and we'll talk about that here in a second as well. But he may not lead the team in scoring against Ohio State, may not lead the team in three-pointers made or an assist or anything like that. But I think he's a glue guy. He's kind of like the Bruce Thornton of Ohio State, or the Bruce Thornton of Kentucky, I guess I should say, where he can distribute, he can share, he's smart, he's crafty, really similar types of players, I would say. Jackson Robinson, I think, is the most important player on this offense for Kentucky, but there's truly no important player on Kentucky, because if everyone is important, no one is important, and this is, like I said, a really, really balanced offense. So you look at how they score. First of all, 33% of their points come from the three-point line, that's fine. That's nothing special. It's not a lot. 50% of their points come from the two-point line, and 17 made free throws per game. None of those numbers are huge. It's all middle of the pack. So you have to be able to guard the three-point line. You have to be able to guard at the rim. You have to be able to guard in the paint, the mid-range, free throw line. You can't get into foul trouble, anything like that. Kentucky can score from anywhere. They really don't care. They will make shots, and they will put you in a bind. They also have 5 players averaging in double figures right now. You've got Otega Owe, who's leading the team in scoring at 15.7 points per game. Transfers in from Oklahoma. That's a player Ohio State had some initial interest in, I know, in the portal. San Diego State transfer Lamont Butler. He's right behind at 15.1 points per game, but you've got 5 players in total who are averaging double figures in scoring. And then you look at just the game-by-game scoring breakdown. They have had, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different leading scorers, and then another game where they had a player tie for the lead in scoring. So you've got Owe, who has led the team in scoring twice. Kobe Brea has led the team in scoring 3 times. We haven't even talked about him yet. He's one of the best three-point shooters in all of the NCAA. Transfer in from UD. You've got Andrew Carr, who's led the team in scoring twice. Jackson Robinson has led the team in scoring twice. And then Carr and Owe tied once for the lead in scoring. Lamont Butler has led the team in scoring once, and it happened against Louisville. So you've got a bunch of guys who are capable of leading the team in scoring for Kentucky. It's a good group. It's an unselfish group. It's an old group. This isn't the typical Kentucky with a bunch of like 7, 8 freshmen on the team leading the way. They've got a more experienced group here under Mark Pope. A lot of transfers on the team, of course, and they've made it work to this point. So offensively, they're super balanced. I think Jackson Robinson, again, is really the focal point, but there's so many players. You look at Owe, he's so smart. He's very, very good at slashing to the rim. He'll have a chance for an open 3, but if he sees the space, he will use that quick first step and power the ball to the rim. Brea is a big-time three-point shooter. Carr can kind of stretch the floor a little bit. He can hit some shots for you. Robinson kind of can score from everywhere on the floor. And Lamont Butler, he's got all the experience, very similar to Micah Parrish for Ohio State coming in from San Diego State. He scored, I think, 33 points against Louisville. And that's the first time they've had a 30-point scorer. It's the first time they've had a 25-point scorer, I believe. I think before that, their leading scorer in a game was like 22 points. And you're averaging over 90 points per game. So you're scoring a lot. It's so evenly distributed for Kentucky. The only weakness that I guess you could say that Kentucky has offensively is they're like the anti-Valpo, where Ohio State's game plan against Valpo, number one, defensively had to be don't foul. That's not so much of an issue against Kentucky. So Kentucky just doesn't really get to the free throw line. They're only drawing about 16 fouls per game. I think a little more than that. Their free throw attempt rate is at 31.6%. That's certainly not a lot. It's not nothing, but it's definitely below the middle of the pack or the median. And they only make 72.3% of their free throws. That's a little bit lower as well. So none of these numbers are impressive. It's also about the least important thing to be subpar at, in my opinion, offensively. Oh, you don't get to the free throw line all that much. It's 1 point, sometimes 2. There's a chance it could be 2. Usually it's 1 point around there. Usually it's more than 1 point, I guess, because most teams are going to shoot somewhere around 70% from the free throw line. You get my point, though. It's not the most important. Like, if you're a really bad three-point shooting team, if you struggle with turnovers, that's something I would take over, and we just don't get to the free throw line that much. Whatever. So Kentucky offensively, very balanced. They score a lot of points. Now, on the defensive end, they're still really good, but the offense is what takes the cake for Kentucky. They're allowing 71.6 points per game this year. Now, that's a little bit on the higher end. Their defensive rating, though, is 97.7. So Kentucky's pace, and I can't believe I haven't talked about this. Let me find Kentucky's pace, because apparently on college basketball analytics, I am looking at Texas's numbers, and I know why. We'll talk about that in a bit. How do you spell Kentucky? There they are. And I clicked on the women's team. College basketball analytics does not just have numbers on men's basketball, but also on women's basketball, in case you're curious. Let's get to the men's team. Kentucky women's team is 9-1 right now, just so you know. So what am I looking for? Where are we here? Pace for Kentucky. Their pace is 72.5. That's 95th percentile in college basketball. So you see the points allowed being at, what are we at here? 71.6 points. That's 59th percentile in college basketball. So it's a little above the median. It's not great, though. But with the pace, you see they're actually a pretty good defense. A 97.7 rating. You always want that number under 100. That's 88th percentile in college basketball. So they're giving up some scoring, but there's just so many possessions. You're going to give up a few more points. That defensive rating really good. They're allowing 39.4% shots from the field to go in, and their three-point defense is really good at 27.5%. That's 11th in college basketball. They're going to give you some different looks. They will man you up. They can zone you up as well. They'll go into a trap zone at times. You'll see that. If you didn't watch that Kentucky against Gonzaga game a couple Saturdays ago, you should definitely watch that. I think that was Saturday. Maybe it was like a late Friday night. I don't remember. But that was a great game. Went into overtime. Go back and watch that. If you want to look at Kentucky as a whole, you could just, there's like a, I'm sure 10, 15 minute video on YouTube with highlights of that game. You should watch that game, watch the Duke game as well to get a feel for what Kentucky does defensively. You'll be able to see that in both of those games. So the interesting part about Kentucky, and this comes from KenPom, they are 15th in the nation in average height on the floor. That comes again from KenPom. Their average height is 6.56 feet. That's a weird stat, but it kind of displays all of these different numbers, kind of shows why these numbers are what they are. So 75.2% defensive rebounding rate. That's really, really good. They've got a 13.3% block rate. They're 90th percentile in paint points allowed per game, but we need to dive into that number a little bit deeper, and we will here in just a second. But they've got the size. They've got the ability to guard, obviously. And, you know, like we know Andrew Carr. We know the type of player he is. He's 6'11". Jackson Robinson stands at 6'6". Otega Owe is 6'4". Kobe Brea is listed at 6'7", and that's your best three-point shooter of the team at 53.1%. He can guard Amari Williams, 7 feet tall as well. Lamont Butler is your only player who would be like considered short, I guess. He's 6'2". And then, of course, Brandon Garrison, a player we haven't talked about either at this point. He stands at 6 feet 10 inches. Kentucky will not have Kerr Kriisa for this game. Where was he? Arizona and then West Virginia or something like that. He'll be out, I think, like an indefinitely type of thing, but should be back at some point this year. I think he has a foot injury, I don't know if he needed surgery, but some kind of a broken foot or something like that. That happened against Gonzaga. So Kentucky a little bit more thin without him. But all that to say, it's a big team. It's a tall team. It's a long team. They can defend. That leads to them being able to defensive rebound, leads them being able to block shots as well. The one weakness that you will see defensively, and this is something I just wonder about. I don't know if this is something that Jake Diebler and the coaching staff would be talking about today, tomorrow, as they get ready for Kentucky, something they've been talking about this week. I have no idea. I just wonder if they struggle to guard big men. And I did some research on this, and I found some interesting numbers here. So Noah Waterman, Kentucky just played Louisville. Noah Waterman, the main post man there for Louisville, he scored 12 points against Kentucky. That's not necessarily a lot, but it is the second most points that he scored this season in a game. So then you look back and you see Kentucky's game against Gonzaga. I'm sure that you know the name Graham Ike. So he scored 28 points. That's his career high. He's a big-time scorer. He was a big-time scorer last year for Gonzaga. He's a big-time scorer this year for Gonzaga. But the most points he's ever scored in a game came against Kentucky when they played this season. Chauncey Wiggins, Clemson, knocked off Kentucky. The only loss Kentucky has taken this year. He scored 12 points, and he only averages 8.5 points per game. And then you look at the Duke game. Scoring 10 points while averaging only 7.8 points per game was Kaman Maluek, I think is how you say his last name. He's a freshman there at Duke. He scored more than his average scoring in a game this year. And the scoring, it could be, granted, a product of Kentucky's higher pace, but when you have all of these examples, one after another, and all the big games Kentucky has played this year, it makes you wonder. And the other thing is, these players playing for Clemson and Louisville and Duke and Gonzaga, they are playing the Western Michigans of the world and the Southern Illinois of the world and the Montana states of the world. They're playing poor teams. Those are the games where you should be scoring more points, probably not against Kentucky. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. They allow 45% of shots in the paint that go up. They allow 45% to go in. I have got to figure out a better way to phrase that. Whenever I talk about opponent field goal percentages, it just doesn't sound good. That number, not horrible, but it's also not great. Just under 44% of scoring allowed comes in the paint, and that's 45th percentile in college basketball. So I think that there may be a little bit of an opportunity for Ohio State to score in the paint. And the way that you allow points as Kentucky defensively in the paint and to postmen, it's not the Devin Royal type of way of scoring where you just back them down and you score. You're not going to be able to do that to Garrison. You're not going to be able to do that to Andrew Carr. The way that they allow points is off quick passes, it's off dump offs, it's off cutting to the basket. So that's really more so like the Sean Stewart type of scoring. That's more so the Evan Mahaffey type of scoring. If those guys can get going and get some buckets for Ohio State, they're going to have a lot better chance to win this game. Aaron Bradshaw, I think that there is a higher than 50% likelihood that he plays for Ohio State. In this one, I think he'll return. And this one would be my guess. I'm not saying I've heard anything necessarily. I'm just saying, again, my guess from just inklings and, again, not necessarily anything I've heard or have been told. My guess is that he will play in this one. I could be wrong, though, so don't be mad if he doesn't play. But Aaron Bradshaw could be a player as well who could score in this one. You'll see, too, like Gonzaga, Ike is insane. He's an insane talent who came back to – I'm not a scout. I've said that many times before. I don't get why that guy's not playing in the NBA right now. Just saying. He can hit some threes. Aaron Bradshaw this year is like 0 of 9 or 0 of 11, 0 of 12 from the three-point line. He's got to hit some threes if he does play in this one. That's where Kentucky will give up some scoring to postmen. But overall, there could be opportunity for Ohio State in this one to score in the paint. All right. We're pacing a little slow today, so let's pick up the pace. We're going to get into keys to the game, banger bets, and then some predictions. I think we'll get out of here in 35-ish minutes, maybe less. The fun part is you already know. You can see that. I don't know. That's a good part for you. You're in the future. All right, so keys to the game. I don't know why, but this feels like a Sean Stewart show up to this game type of game for Ohio State. We've been waiting for Sean Stewart. From what I have said this year is that Sean Stewart is an athlete who doesn't look like a basketball player. He's not a basketball player who looks like an athlete as well. He's an athlete who does not look like a basketball player. You're waiting for the skill. You're waiting to see him finish at the rim. You're waiting to see the touch. You haven't seen that. Here's the thing with a team like Kentucky. They will run the floor. If they're going to run the floor, Sean Stewart is going to have to run the floor as well. He's going to have to maybe potentially help stop the ball, but get to the paint, block shots, stop the drives, stop Kentucky in transition where they're really, really good. Kentucky scores a lot of fast break points. I haven't talked about that, but I'm going to find it for you just so you know. From CBB Analytics, their fast break points per game is at 18.5. That's 99th percentile in college basketball, and 20.2% of their points come off the fast break. That's 96th percentile in college basketball. So Ohio State's going to have to stop Kentucky on the fast break. I think that comes a little bit from Sean Stewart. And again, talk about the points in the paint that they allow. It's the Sean Stewart types of points where you grab the ball, one quick crab dribble, up with a floater. Those are the types of shots that Sean Stewart's going to have to consistently make. Can he finish some lobs? Can he finish some layups? Can he run the floor for Ohio State on the offensive end like we saw him do 2 possessions in a row against Valpo earlier this week? If you get more of that type of Sean Stewart, you're going to have a good chance to win this game. I'm not saying Devin Royal's not going to pour in 17 points again and be a leading scorer for Ohio State. I do think that he might be limited a little bit more than normal in this one, and it's going to be Sean Stewart, Evan Mahaffey, maybe Aaron Bradshaw if he plays the type of player who needs to score. I'm really looking at Sean Stewart. I think he could be really important for Ohio State in this one. The other one, enjoy the pace if you're Ohio State and Jake Diebler. So this is as specific as I'd like to be. There's a person who is close to me interviewing for a new job at this point, and that's as specific as I'd like to be. It's intense to interview, right? There's a lot of pressure. You got to think fast. It's not the same as playing basketball, but there are some similarities. There's some analogies that we can draw there, some comparisons. That doesn't mean it can't be fun. I told this person, hey, look, enjoy it. Enjoy it and have fun. Even though you got to think fast, you got to play fast against Kentucky. Are we seeing the similarities there? Doesn't mean it can't be fun and you can't accept it. Jake Diebler, as I've said so many times, he told us last season, told us during the offseason, told us during the preseason. He's told us during the season, Ohio State is going to play fast. Well, we haven't really seen it yet, Jake. So how about 40 minutes of being force-fed pace to get you to finally follow through on playing fast in a game? We've seen it in a random game-by-game basis this year from Ohio State, and this one, just accept it, all right? It's like a lazy river that's actually traveling 20 miles per hour. Just jump in with your floaty and let it take you away. That is the type of pace Ohio State needs to play in this game. I think Ohio State is better when they play with pace. Offensively, you get more opportunities. Michi Johnson, not going to be back for this one. Bruce Thornton, Micah Parrish, they can play downhill a little bit, especially Bruce Thornton. Sean Stewart can definitely play downhill. Evan Mahaffey, he will rumble downhill. Not sure how good it'll look. But this is a team that I think is better. You really wish you had Michi Johnson Jr. for a game like this because he's so good playing with pace. But just enjoy the pace. If you're Ohio State, accept it. Don't fight against it. It's like, isn't there like, you're not supposed to fight against like a rip current or something? You're supposed to, you swim in a circle or down or away. Clearly I would die if I were in a rip current. So don't ask for me for advice or for help, but don't fight it. Just let it happen. Okay. Those are two keys to the game for me. I think that's how Ohio State stays in this game. All right, banger bets. So no numbers are out yet, but we do have a spread and a total that we're going to project in this one. Spread, Kentucky minus 6.5, Ohio State plus 6.5. That's the number we would expect. The total we would project at 161.5. So those numbers are there for you to be aware of when the numbers come out, probably later on tonight, definitely tomorrow. All the numbers will be out. Just be advised. All right. Predictions for this one. And again, I told you, I promised that I would have probably a pick for a banger bet. I'm not going to spoil that for you yet. So here's a couple of numbers for you. And this is just, it's not a lazy way to think about it. It's just, I'm going through as many numbers as possible. I'm seeing what I'm seeing from Ohio State basketball, watching every single second of them play basketball this year and watching Kentucky play. I think I've watched live 2-3 games and a couple more games. I've DVR'd thanks to YouTube TV, not a sponsor, so name redacted. Never mind. Also, they jacked their prices up. Again, stop it. Watching from the eye test, looking at stats, I just don't know where the matchup advantage is for Ohio State. Kentucky is 8th in the nation in adjusted offensive efficiency. Ohio State is 54th in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency. Kentucky, 6th in college basketball in turnover rate. Ohio State's defense is 246. So Ohio State's not going to force any turnovers in this one, and Kentucky's not going to give the ball away. Kentucky is 30th in college basketball in defensive rebounding rate. Ohio State's offensive rebounding rate, they're just not getting help from Sean Stewart, Evan Mahaffey, Devin Royal. Even those guys have kind of been up and down recently in terms of offensive rebounding. Buckeyes are down to 238th in the nation in offensive rebounding rate. Kentucky is 30th in the nation in defensive rebounding rate. Where is the matchup that Ohio State can win? I searched and searched and searched. The only one I found is maybe Ohio State's three-point defense against Kentucky's three-point offense. Ohio State's defense only allows 28.5% of three-pointers to go in this year. Kentucky makes 36.7% of their three-pointers. Where does that rank nationally? I don't care. Let's just do percentile. That's 81st percentile in college basketball. So you have a bit of a strength on strength here. Ohio State's number, is Pitt a three-point shooting team? No. Texas A&M certainly not known as a three-point shooting team. Auburn had its way with Ohio State. You go back to Texas, that was the first game of the year, so how much does that really matter? And then the games against online campuses and community colleges this year for Ohio State, I don't care how you defended the three-point line. That doesn't matter to me. So that's the one strength-on-strength matchup that could go Ohio State's way. But all in all, I just struggle to find a matchup where Ohio State can definitively win, whether it be individually, as you look at the Kentucky team and the players that they've got. Is there a player on Ohio State's side that can definitively win a matchup against Kentucky? I don't see that offensively or defensively. And then team-wise, when you look at the numbers, when you look at one side's offense against another side's defense, turnovers, rebounding, anything like that, I just don't see the advantage for Ohio State. They have not played well against the SEC. They picked up the win against Texas in front of about 23 people in Las Vegas. Those 23 people got those tickets from their company, so they had no rooting interest in the game. That's a good win for Ohio State. I won't say who cares. We care. It's a good win, but I care much more about games played in December and played at least closer to December, like the A&M game where Ohio State just got out-bullied. And the Pitt game where they had the lead, but they lost it. And against Auburn, they got absolutely manhandled in that one. Ohio State just hasn't been able to show up for big games this year under Jake Diebler. They got the win over Texas. They're not ranked. Maybe Pitt's better than Texas. I don't know. Why do we care about? Why am I talking about rankings? The guy who doesn't care about rankings, why am I talking about rankings? But where's Texas currently? Let's take a look. Texas is 30th in Bart Torvik, probably similar in Ken Palm. So they're not the highest ranked team that Ohio State has played. And yeah, they got the win and it was impressive and it was fun. But recently, Ohio State has not played well in big games. I think Kentucky is much closer to the Auburn type than they are the Texas or even Pitt. So for that reason, I don't see how Ohio State wins this game. I think the lack of depth really, really hurts Ohio State. If you get Colin White back, if you get Quez Glover back, that's great. I think that they'll get Aaron Bradshaw back for this game. You got the revenge factor there. You got Joel Justice, associate head coach, used to be on the coaching staff for Kentucky. You've got the little, maybe, friendly rivalry between Micah Parrish and Lamont Butler, both previously playing at San Diego State. Maybe there's other connections there too. I don't know. But all in all, it's hard for me to paint a picture that I can see personally where Ohio State keeps it close with Kentucky and obviously wins against Kentucky. I just don't see that. So the major lean, we'll see what the numbers come out as. My lean is going to be Kentucky covering a 6.5 point spread. I would take this up to 7.5. I would take it up to 8.5. There's a world where I would take it up to 9.5 and even into the double digits. We might do a little ladder on that. I don't know. So keep an eye on X. If you don't want to bet against Ohio State, then don't. I'm not going to encourage you to do so. Let's take a look as well. I'll get you out of here quickly. What is Kentucky basketball against the spread this season? Let's take a look at their record. Please hold. I've got the page up now, and they're 5-5-1 against the spread. That is not very good for Kentucky. So that kind of leans Ohio State, but we'll see what the number is. All that to say, we'll see what the number is. I just struggle to see a world where Ohio State can keep it close with Kentucky. And even if we don't like the value on the spread, I would take Kentucky's over on their team total as well. So we'll see. That all said, I predict that Ohio State loses this game to Kentucky. I think Kentucky wins. Maybe they touch 90 points, at least 85 points for Kentucky. I think Ohio State maybe scores 70 to 75 at most, and they just struggle to get in this game and stay in it. Kentucky might come out and stomp them from the start, and you're just looking at your watch waiting for Ohio State football to start, and you hope that you'll finally shut up those stupid Tennessee fans and win that game and give you some joy the Saturday before Christmas. So, all that said, I've got Kentucky winning this game over Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to really need to play well in the Big Ten in order to make the Big Ten tournament. We'll see how all of that goes. But we will be back Saturday night, Sunday morning. I'm not sure what the day is going to look like on Saturday with some family gatherings that we'll enjoy for Christmas. So we'll be back at some point to recap Ohio State's game against Kentucky. And then, of course, I think a week from Sunday, Ohio State will be back after their Christmas break to take on Indiana State at home. So we'll cover that game as well. But I appreciate you listening to today's show more than you could ever understand. I'm going to shut up before you shut me off. Go Bucks.